third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. We get to talk about good things for once because Aaron Nola somehow did it again. He came up big in the playoff clinching game. We're a couple days removed from that, recording this on Thursday. That happened on Tuesday, where the Phillies clinched they clinched their playoff spot and then technically clinched the number one wildcard spot about an hour later when the Cubs just decided they didn't want to play defense anymore against the Braves. But yeah, that's brutal for them. But they win it on a walk-off single by Johan Rojas in the bottom of the 10th inning after the Phillies blew kind of a 2-0 lead. Craig Kimbrell, another solo home run given up, which has kind of been a concern with him. Just a lot of weird home runs and unfortunate spots. But young kid comes through. Aaron Nola, 6 2/3, 1 run. Mm-hmm. Very nice to see out of him. I know it's the Pirates and it's the end of the year, but still. What do we make of the Phillies? Because I think last we spoke, they lost 3 out of 4 at home to the Braves. And since then, they won 2 out of 3 in St. Louis, 2 out of 3 in Atlanta, swept the Mets in a 4-game series, and now won the first 2 against Pittsburgh. It's another 20 games over 500.
Yeah, I mean, they've been playing well, and they've been doing it kind of like a variety of different ways. Like earlier on that, like the torrid August that they kind of had, they kind of just out hit everyone. It's like you can score 4, 5, 6 runs. It doesn't matter. We're going to score 8. So they've kind of been doing it different ways. Like the clincher, it was mostly pitching. Like Nola was great. And then the offense, the Mets series, they kind of just like manhandled them, which is what they're supposed to do with how the Mets roster, especially that pitching staff, kind of looks. It helps that I don't think we got Senga in that series.
No, yeah, I missed him.
4 games and you miss really their only competent starter at this point. But still, like I was shocked. Like Alonso went like 1 for 17 that series. Again, like they kind of had a lock on the playoff spot, but I didn't know how tight home field was going to get. Mm-hmm. And I thought for sure that Alonso was just going to like destroy them. But you blink and by the end of that series, they're 5 games up on a wild card spot. And it kind of happened fast, but they played really well. And it seemed like at some point in time, everybody was stepping up in different ways. JT had a good homestand. Like Turner was like, I didn't even realize he was like 0 for his last 21 at one point.
2 for his last 25, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you couldn't really tell. Like at least I personally couldn't. The lineup was just kind of moving along, and it's not like early in the season where his at-bats were horrible. Like it seemed like they were decent. He was just missing some pitches. Castellanos is like scorching. He's cooled off a little bit the last few games, but
yeah, the Mets series he was hot.
The Braves series into the Mets series, he was out of his mind. So if we could get any form of like Cincinnati Castellanos or really like this season, like probably his second best career year in terms of power numbers, aside from the 65 double season or whatever. Like if they get any form of that in September, I think they'll be in good shape. Something that stood out to me though over the homestand, I don't know if you noticed this, the bullpen, like Kimbrell's obviously a head scratcher, but like Sir Anthony's stuff looked a lot better.
Yeah.
Hoffman's a stud all of a sudden. And the inning that Gregory Soto had last night to strike out the side to end the game, like if they get those guys clicking, like the starters legitimately have to make it like a 4 or 5 inning game if you can just roll those guys out there, because they are out of their mind, including Kerkering, who for some reason they treat like the righty Brad Hand and just throw a slider 99% of the time. But I mean, they have nasty stuff in the bullpen.
Yeah, they do. I think we talked about that in maybe July, that we really trust the bullpen, and then they had a couple of rough months there. But now you blink and it's really Kimbrel is like kind of at the bottom of my trust list all of a sudden, where he was like number one over the summer.
You know what's like crazy about that to me? I think the Pirates home run was like the second run that he gave up in September. Like every appearance for him is a nightmare, and he walks the tightrope. But like he hasn't really been giving up runs.
No, that's kind of been the thing with the last few Phillies closers. Hector Neris, same way. Corey Knebel was that way last year too. I remember the most Corey Knebel thing ever was when Bowman Vierling hit the home runs off Hader, and then Knebel decided to have like a 45 pitch inning where he walked this loaded with no outs and then like struck out the side.
Yeah.
So it's just nothing new for us with the closer. It's always been an adventure, no matter who it is, a Hall of Famer or Corey Knebel. So that I do like the way the bullpen's setting up though, because Strom has been really good lately. Actually, like people give him crap sometimes. And part of it, I don't ever think it's his fault. I think he's overused sometimes, where they bring him back out for a second inning, and that's usually when he has an issue. So, like, to me, he's fine. Soto looked a lot better. Alvarado is back to, I think, where he was pre-injury. It's about the righties for me. Kimbrel, or Dominguez, and I guess now Kerkering is Hoffman, but I guess Kerkering is kind of the third non-closer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of your big seven in a sense, I guess, right there. Because I guess they're going to go with Kerkering over the likes of Marte, Bilotti, and
rightfully so.
Brogdon's been gone for half the year. I don't even consider him anymore. And he was a guy who was pitching some valuable innings in the playoffs last year too. Mm-hmm. So just a lot of changes from that group. But I think I feel good about where they're at with them right now.
And I think going off of two things that you said, Thompson's been better the last month or so as far as not doing the whole wraparound thing.
Yeah,
like
a problem.
The other day, bases loaded against the Mets. He brought in Hoffman to get Alonso, and he got him to pop up on like the first or second pitch, and then he was done. Like a 2-pitch outing. And I think that's important because we went through August and the beginning of September, and it's like, who do I really trust in this bullpen? And you picked out like one or two guys, and you were really taxing those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need wraparound innings when you have the playoff spot locked up. Like, get the one out. He doesn't need to throw more than 2 pitches. It's basically a night off for him. Like, just leave it there. And I think he started to realize that with Strom. I think early in the year we kind of penciled it in like, hey, Strom's going to come out for a second inning, and that's when he's going to give up the 1 home run per outing, which he was pretty much due for. And I think as he's been kind of limited into 1 inning, he can kind of go max effort for that 1 inning, and you're not going to have to worry about him giving up the long ball afterwards. And another thing, like you were talking about how we're kind of used to it with the closers, I think there's so much flexibility in the bullpen. We don't really have that set closer. You can kind of play your matchups, and especially if Soto's as good as he looked the other night, like you can play your lefty matchups and your righty matchups to kind of attack the heart of the order if it's righty, lefty, righty, or lefty, righty, lefty. Like put your best lefty in the 7th inning and not have to worry about not having a closer because you have another lefty that you trust back there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Soto, the Phillies have him as like a 7th inning guy. We're talking, I know it was the Tigers, but we're talking about a guy who was a 2-time All-Star closer, and he's the 7th inning guy here. Or even, I guess not even the 7th inning all the time. It's more of a situational lefty guy. So just to have so many different guys with, I guess they have 3. If you count Alvarado, you have 4. I guess Dominguez used to close. So you have 4 guys that have experience closing in the back end of that bullpen.
And like you're saying how it's a Tigers All-Star, like we've seen kind of the fall off with Lorenzen as far as being a Tigers All-Star. The stuff's different. Like Soto's stuff is legitimate power sinker, slider, and even like a little bit of a funky delivery. Like he's got legitimate stuff from a weird arm angle. He kind of sweeps it in there sometimes. And a slide step's not the most comfortable thing to hit off of when it's coming at you at 98. It feels like 102 at that point. Like, it's legitimate stuff, and for some reason he just gets hit or he's erratic around the strike zone. But, like, when he's on, it is, like, legitimate, could have been an all-star for any team in the league stuff.
Yeah. All right, so switching gears a little bit. I think alcohol gives this lineup superpowers because I go back to last September, and they were kind of struggling offensively. Remember, they were limping to that playoff spot where the Marlins had to sweep the Brewers or whatever, and then they won that game against the Astros 2-1 or whatever it was, where Schwarber hit the 3-1, I think, because I think Stott hit 1-2 in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they partied that night on clinching, came out in the wild card round, had that crazy ninth inning, won the second game, partied again, came out and smashed around the Braves, partied again, came out, and it took the first game was a little bit of a struggle against the Padres and scored 2 runs, but then the next 3, I think they were 5 or 6 plus runs a game.
Yeah.
And then partied again in the first few games of the World Series were quite fun. And then the other night, they partied Tuesday night, and then they come out on Wednesday and score 7 runs with Garrett Stubbs, who hasn't hit seemingly a ball out of the infield all year, hitting his first home run. So
I think legitimately that was his first hit since like the first week of August.
It's felt, yeah.
Like, I don't know. Of course he did it. Like, it's just so funny. I don't know. He's like, it's so fascinating to me how Garrett Stubbs operates because, like, legitimately he just seemed like the guy who belongs in like a beer league, like not the major leagues. Like, he should just be the guy that like rolls out of bed, goes to the community park with like a 6-pack and just like plays like slow pitch softball with his buddies. But instead he's a backup major league catcher. I'm assuming that he's going to play like a little bit more over the next 4 games just to kind of give JT off. Is JT playing tonight?
I did not check the lineup.
I think he is, but I'm assuming Stubbs will get 2 games this weekend just because JT's inning total is just so high. But
and Realmuto's playing, but I think part of that has to do with the fact that this is Wheeler's last start before the playoffs start. I think they want to get them on the same page, and the Phillies pretty much. Well, I lied because they gave Stott and Marsh. Well, it's pretty much a righty heavy lineup.
Well, Stott and Marsh also played yesterday.
Yeah. So like the veterans are in today. The young guys played yesterday. Now it's kind of the opposite. I guess Cave's probably going to play every day until the playoffs start because I think they got to just try to get this guy at bats because I guess he's your number 1 pinch hit option right now, which kind of sucks.
Hoskins.
Yeah, we have to get into that, I guess, eventually. But
it's probably Cave, I guess.
Which
sucks. Unless you really like trust Sosa. I don't know what the splits look like as far as Sosa against righties, but
yeah,
I'd assume Cave's your number 1 bench bat against a righty. Yeah,
that was because the bench bat thing to me was such a big thing at the deadline, more than a lot of other things outside of maybe a righty reliever, which between Hoffman and Kirker, I guess that got fixed internally. But I just felt like they needed that guy. Like all the years the Phillies sucked from 12 to last year, they always somehow had good bench players though, like Brad Miller, you know what I mean? Like a dude like that. And now it's like
Gosselin.
Yeah, and now it's like they're good and they don't have that dude off the bench. And I think it is kind of I know the starting lineup is so good and the excuse will be, oh, well, when's this guy going to play with all the set guys in the lineup? But like still, I think that is the one part where I would have liked to see this team improve would have been some bench depth.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the depth is there. It's just not necessarily at the plate. Like with how this team's built, like you're going to get in terms of offense, you're going to get that from the starting 9. And then you hope they just do their work in the first 7.5, 8 innings. And then the depth is on defense. You put in Pache or Marsh or whoever. You basically put 3 elite outfielders in terms of Pache, Marsh, and Rojas in the outfield and cover ground, and just pray you won't have to worry about a Schwarber or a Castellanos' spot coming up in the lineup in a big spot. But at this point, I mean, I trust Rojas to hit, and for the most part, I mean, the strikeouts have been crazy the last month with Marsh, but for the most part, I trust Marsh. He's been pretty consistent for 4 or 5.5 months of the season up until the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a concern for me that Stott, Marsh, and Bohm have all kind of tailed off a little at the end here. And, you know, for Stott, this was his first full year. I think Marsh was pretty much his first full year. Bohm hasn't been as bad of a drop off. You know, he's done it a little more than those 2 guys. So I do worry a little bit about them just kind of their first full long season getting it together. So that is the one little thing I'm monitoring, but give them a couple days off here. I think at the end would be nice, but that's just a little nitpick thing. Other than that, I don't have a ton of concerns with the offense going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, and I think, I think one thing that we've seen about this team and this core specifically, it's like they're saying and doing the right things. Like after the game the other day, like Marsh was like, as long as like we're winning, like I don't really care about like the struggles and stuff. Like as long as I can go out and play defense and impact the game that way, like they're doing the right things. I think they're just getting a little fatigued. So hopefully like you can get those guys a break, get Pache some at bats the last week and get Marsh off his feet and just keep him going in the cages, working with K-Long. Like I think him and Stott will be fine. Castro's played in like 3 games since they got him. So like if Stott needs to sit the next 4, then fine.
Right.
Like I don't expect Rodolfo Castro to have any impact on the playoffs at all, but you never know. So get the guy at bats 4 games.
Think there's any chance Cody Clemens is on the playoff roster over Cave or Rodolfo Castro? I don't. He offers a little more first base defensive backup. You know, with Harper seemingly going to play there every day now in the playoffs. That was just something I thought about that gives you a safer backup bet at first base defensively.
I don't see them dumping Cave, but I think maybe they should. Like if you have Rojas, Marsh, Pache, Castellanos, and Schwarber to make up your 5 outfield spots, like you don't really need a 6th.
Yeah. I know he plays some first base, but
yeah, I mean Schwarber should DH. Like it does seem like, especially on the stretch, like they're making a concerted effort to get Harper to first every day, kind of simulating what the playoff grind will be like of him playing there every day.
Mm-hmm.
But like you probably don't need to carry 5 outfielders, especially when Clemens is probably the better bat than Cave. Like he's proved to be the better bat at the major league level. I know he kind of fell off a cliff a little bit right before they sent him down, but I think overall he had a better season than Cave did. So yeah, I don't think they will, but I'd probably be comfortable if they made that move.
I'm trying to pull up. Here we go. Matt Gell put out the quote unquote stay ready camp. These guys went down to Clearwater and they will have daily workouts. It's Marchand, who we have not seen at all this year because the Phillies thankfully have stayed healthy at catcher, honestly, which is impressive. You rarely go through a season that the third catcher doesn't get called up for like not, like I don't know if either one of them went on like the bereavement list or anything. I don't think so, but like non-injury, like injury reasons. So Derek Hall, Cody Clemens, Weston Wilson, those were the only hitters who were invited. And then Bilotti, Brogdon, Marte, McKinley Moore, Nick Nelson, Ortiz, and Plasmeyer, who all saw time in the bullpen at some point, were brought up. So no like middle infielders, really. Scott Kingery, most notably. So yeah, interesting that really no middle infielders on that list. You got a catcher, 2 first base DHs, and an outfielder.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have, Bowman, Harper on your corners, Turner, Stott, Sosa, and Castro. Like, you do have 4 guys that can play middle. So I don't think there's something would have to go horribly wrong to need a middle infielder to stay ready, Cam.
Right. All right. So we're gonna come back once we find out who the Phillies' opponent is and do a preview of the wild card round. But before we go, I do want to touch on kind of where that stands. This will change, I guess, by the time this comes out. But the Diamondbacks are currently a game and a half up. They lost today being Thursday. And then the Cubs and the Marlins are technically tied for the 3rd spot. But Miami has the tiebreaker between the 2 teams. Cincinnati, the team I wish we could play, is a game and a half out of the 3rd spot. So the chances of them catching Arizona is 0, I think, at this point. I don't think they can. So that's a bummer. Technically, somehow the Padres can still get in, but save me that.
That'll probably be done tonight.
Yeah. So it's looking like Arizona, barring them losing out and one of Chicago or Miami winning out. Which
who do they have? Arizona.
Well, Arizona has Houston.
Oh.
And Houston has to be playing because they are holding off the
They're a game and
Mariners.
A half off Seattle after this week.
Yeah. So I guess it's did they win the season series now?
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's technically 2.5. So really they just have to win 1 and then they might pack it in. But if they want to catch, I guess if they want to keep going, they're only a half game behind the Blue Jays, which it doesn't make a difference. You're on the road either way. Actually, you'd probably want to stay there because it's a little probably better to go to Minnesota than go to Tampa.
Yeah, you'd probably want Minnesota instead.
Yeah, so I think after tonight they might
Minnesota's
not try.
pitching's really good.
Yeah, that is true. So Phillies obviously safely the first wildcard team, but it's looking like Arizona is going to be that team, and it's mostly a battle between Chicago and Miami for the 3rd spot, which would have no impact on the Phillies until the NLCS, right?
I'd probably be in favor of Milwaukee saying we have the Central locked up and punting those last 3 games.
Yeah, because Milwaukee plays the Cubs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Marlins play the Pirates, I think. Yeah, they do. It's at Pittsburgh, whatever that's worth. But they have a game tonight, though, still in New York, but Luzardo is going for them. So you would have to assume they get the win there.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be what we monitor over the weekend. We'll see. Just one quick little nugget. These final 4 games do not matter, but with the way the World Series home field advantage has changed, it's kind of the better record between the 2 teams who meet. So Phillies have 89 wins. Teams in the AL, the Orioles have 99. They cannot catch them. The Rays have 97. They cannot catch them. Texas has 89. Minnesota has 85. Toronto and Houston each have 97. So yeah, winning 2 of these last 4 wouldn't be bad because it might put you in a spot. I'm assuming does it come down a head-to-head tiebreaker then if they have the same record? Do we know, or is who was the highest seed then?
I don't know how the playoff. I know if there was a 3-way tiebreaker or something as far as like wild card, it was interdivisional record. I don't know if that's how it works for the World Series. I'd have to assume it's probably higher seed.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, because if it came to head-to-head, the Phillies would have it. I think they would have it over Houston. They would have it over Toronto. That was 3-1, right? Yeah, they beat them 3-1 over the season. Yeah. They lost to Minnesota and lost to Texas, though. So those are the 4 teams to keep an eye on when it comes to that stuff. I want to say the AL winner comes out of the AL West teams. The Rays are too banged up, and I don't think the Orioles have the pitching for it, and I think Minnesota's kind of like, we're just happy to be here. So
I don't know, dude. I think Minnesota could be sneaky.
all right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. We will be back either Sunday or Monday to officially preview the Phillies, presumably against the Diamondbacks, but that remains to be seen for another night. So we'll see you next time.